Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another wonderful episode of the TarotBull podcast. Today's quote is, "If we do not believe within ourselves this deeply rooted feeling that there is a something higher than ourselves, we shall never find the strength to evolve into something higher." And that quote is by Rudolf Steiner. Good morning, Ashley.
Good morning. Super excited to record today. This quote, I feel like I've been doing a lot of work recently on myself and kind of what I'm doing with my life. And if you've listened to any of our guest episodes, which hopefully all of our listeners have, I feel as though having them on has just solidified to me that there is this higher being, a higher message, higher reason for.
Yeah, I know what you're saying.
I'm struggling.
How about us really quickly? I'll cut you off, which I rarely do because I'm such an excellent podcaster. And I tell you, let me the show. This is one of the best shows out there, honestly, because we don't talk about despair. We're happy. We laugh at things, but we talk about real life. And I forgot where I interrupted you. No, I didn't. So what I tell people, I was actually just talking to Michelle, one of our guests, because she did a Reiki session, which we should talk about really quickly because that was awesome.
Yes.
Did a Reiki session for each of us. You went first, I went second. And I was telling her because she was asking me how she should frame what she was talking about. Like, are you Christian? What do you think? She's like, I don't want to offend anyone. And I was like, well, this is how I believe. I go, basically, I just believe that something, I can't explain it, created us. Like, it wasn't just random. Other than that, I can't explain it.
Yeah. And there's just, there's no, and I'm really struggling here, but I'm reading this book and it talks about manifestation, and all of our guests have had such similar messages for me. It just feels as though there's something. Oh, hi guys. It just feels as though there's something bigger than what I thought I could do. That's really pushing me to become who I am supposed to be. Not saying that I'm not like a living human being right now or any of that kind of bullshit, but that there's a greater purpose for my existence than what I maybe initially thought and subscribed to.
Well, you can even say it, maybe you're heading toward that, which would technically mean you are on that path right now. And I think that's a better way for people to start framing it, because in this society, we always feel like we got to be, faster, better, stronger, quicker. We should be doing this and that and the other thing, when as long as you aren't really getting any resistance on your path and, you feel like you're heading in the right direction and you're learning new things, that's when you, like I've always said, you should start going easier on yourself, because you really are on the path, because everything you went through technically got you to where you are now. All the quote unquote negative stuff. There's some people that believe that good and evil don't even exist, that we have to experience all these things. It's not to say that we shouldn't do these, but it is when you wake up and you embody and you believe for yourself that there is some kind of higher power, then you could start working toward being a better person and embodying that higher power.
And what I have to say is that, you have to, like you just said, open yourself up to it and be open to receiving the guidance and the help and the assistance. I can agree that potentially a few years ago, if someone had said like, well, so the book I'm reading is called Ask and It Is Given. And if someone had told me like, well, you just have to ask for something and then you're going to get it, within reason. Like, I'm not saying like, I want to date Bill Gates.
Well, now, he is single now.
I know, like, I'm so relevant. No, but like, but I've been really focusing on asking and manifesting things. And it's just so crazy that it really fucking happens.
Yeah. I don't know, honestly, because I can't tell if it's because I'm more aware now because I've been paying more attention to the present moment and stuff going on. I don't know if it's always I mean, it's always kind of been this way with manifestation, but I don't know if it's been on like hyperdrive lately, because just in my life, I know that where I put my attention now, even sometimes that's why I have to be careful, because I don't even realize it, but I'm put my attention towards something and I start to think about, oh, how would this be? And and then all of a sudden I end up in a job. I'm like, whoa, well, how did this happen? So it's like,
and I think that maybe I was wording things the wrong way before, or maybe I was just kind of stuck in the monotony of what my life was, the, normal day in, day out, and kind of subscribing to like the same thing happens. It's just so crazy that I'm living outside of that norm right now. And it just feels like everything is falling into place, and it's a little terrifying. And I feel like I now sound super like emotional, because I'm getting a little emotional about it. But I like woke up this morning to 2 people emailing me saying that they wanted to hire me. I fucking woke up to that. Like, what? Okay, I'm sorry. I feel like, and then it just.
Oh, that's awesome, dude.
It just shows me that like there when you're doing what you're supposed to be doing. I'm so sorry. I feel like I'm like really struggling here to try to explain what I'm trying to think, or what I'm thinking is, when you're doing what you're supposed to be doing, it works. It works out.
Yeah, it goes back to God works in mysterious ways. I like to say that a lot because as a Christian growing up, I heard that from all different flavors of Christianity that I was able to sample as a child. So I feel it might resonate with a lot of people. And it's a saying it just really has meant different things to me throughout my life. And to kind of bring it back to what you were saying, the whole God works in mysterious ways thing, it's just really about how it's all a mystery, and we don't know exactly what's going to happen. Things are going to work out for us. We're going to get the things we ask for, but it's not always going to be how we asked for them. It's like in the old cartoons when you ask the genie for 3 wishes, and you ask him for something and it just works out in a totally different way, similar to the Faustian deal. You ask for like to be able to sleep with all the women you can, and then all of a sudden you become impotent and you can't get an erection or something like that. So it's really about just kind of sitting back and trust the plan of the creator. And then the last thing I want to say is, how there's a concept in the Bible where in the Old Testament, you weren't supposed to say the name of God. We're supposed to call him all these different things. You couldn't say Yahweh or Elohim or all these things. Well, another way to understand that maybe is, what if there is no way to say what God is exactly? So by saying it, you're corrupting it. Like, it's not that if you say it, you're going to get in trouble. But yeah, because if you say it and someone disagrees with you, you can end up in trouble because you get into an argument, So I feel like you could pick apart all these things. That's why I like to quote the Bible a lot sometimes. And it's not because I'm like a Bible banger, but it is because there is a deeper
Bible
level.
Banger.
But I feel like I am, though, like, or what do they call Bible thumper? That's it, not a Bible banger. Can I get some Bible bangers and mash?
Totally now digressing for a second. I totally forgot that we now record the video part of it. And while you were talking, I was brushing Kissy. It's like, because I'm listening, and it's just like methodical, like oh God, no, I have to like be on here.
No, I think that's great, actually. So if you're listening to this and you don't know that we put these up on YouTube, go look for them on YouTube. I'll put the link under this, and go find them and subscribe, and you could watch Ashley brush Giz. It's very relaxing.
Yes. Okay. So, I feel like I didn't even really talk that much about the quote. I'm just talking more about like my perspective journey right now. But I tying it back to the quote, had to take that initial leap of faith that yes, there is a greater purpose for me. There is a bigger picture. There is something else. And I don't see, even that I feel like corrupts it by saying something else, assuming that it's one thing, or you can quantify energy or whatever it is, right? But to lead me into becoming a higher version of myself.
Yeah. Some have called it the all, but that's all I will say about that. Anyway, so what are we talking about today?
Yeah, well, before we actually get into the card, let's talk about our fucking Reiki session.
Oh yeah, let's do that.
Holy shit. Some of you might follow our Instagram at TarotBull2, TarotBull, the number 2. But Brandon and I each have our own personal Instagram accounts. And I sporadically post on there. Most of the things I post are things that I'm like doing, or that I think most of the time things that I think are funny, or that like really resonate with me. And I had to post about the Reiki session. And I went on her fucking Google reviews and wrote a review. I did not. So for the listeners,
that's a great idea. Send me the link to that, by the way.
Oh, I will.
You're so proactive.
People helping people. That's me. So if you've listened to our guest episode with Michelle, she does yoga. She does Reiki.
What's her website too?
That's a great question. I do not know.
Okay, that's fine. I'll look it up while you talk.
But she had, after we had finished recording, I think what a lot of listeners don't know is that kind of we have a little discussion before we start recording. And then when we stop recording, especially with Michelle, we kept talking for like 40 minutes. And so she had offered to give Brandon and I both a Reiki session. And I've never done Reiki before. I didn't know what to expect. And the idea of doing it virtually kind of felt like, what is this? You know, even, and I will say, not that I'm a naysayer or a disbeliever, I just never had it done. I know people that love it and rave about it. She describes what it is more beautifully than I could ever possibly describe it. But what happened was we set our appointments. We just so happened to be going on the same day. And so she calls you, has like an initial conversation of like, what do you want to focus on? Do you have any mantras or anything? And in typical Ashley fashion, I was like, do you have examples of mantras that other people have used? I just want to make sure I'm on the right track here. So she gave me like, oh, you know, this is something that I was like, okay, well, this is what I want to focus on. And I have to tell you that I feel like, especially when I give readings and things, a lot of people don't want to be like, they don't want to say it, but I know they really want to say it. Like, I want this reading to be a relationship reading. I'm not even fucking remotely interested in that for myself at the moment. I'm not putting any fixation or any energy at all into that. It's just not something I feel drawn to at the moment. I'm really trying to focus on building my brand and my business and stuff like that. So that's kind of what I wanted to focus on. So then she showed me her table that had the little setup done. She had her different stones, elements placed on it and the different chakra points. And she said, just get somewhere comfortable and relax, and I'll work here, and then I'll call you back when I'm done. And so the call ended, and I was like, okay. So I was already in bed, and so I just laid down. I have a weighted eye mask that I'm so obsessed with. It really just brings the relaxation to a different level when you use it, because I just like the pressure on my eyes. Anyway, I put the eye mask on. Giz was actually, you know, sometimes she like wanders around and stuff like that, but no, stayed right next to me the whole time. And 45, 50 minutes later, she called me. And let's first talk about, I'm sorry, now I'm like going on this whole tirade about my Reiki session, but I want everyone to realize like what actually it entails, because I was not there in person. Brandon was not there in person in terms of being in the studio with her.
Okay, I have the website now. It's jaidwellness.com, JAIDEE wellness.com, and we'll put a link to the website where you're listening to this.
So she called me, and let's talk just about the time that I was laying in bed. I've done like sensory deprivation pods and stuff like that. And sometimes it's really hard to get your mind to be quiet, like get your mind to just stop. So I was just laying here. I had my fan going. I find this sound of like a fan to be very soothing. And it just within like 10 minutes, my throat was burning. like burning, like you had like a really bad sore throat, and there was so much heat generating from my throat and like my chest. It felt like I felt like I had like a heat rash or something like that. And then behind my head at the base of my skull was like crazy. Like it hurt. It like really hurt. And I was like, I'm on a pillow. So what the hell? So I like moved a little bit, like, okay, maybe it's just me trying to get comfortable. Never though in my whole life, me trying to get comfortable has made my throat hurt like that. But so when she called me, she was saying that she was really focusing on my throat and heart chakras. I literally could have just died. Like when she told me that, and I was like, I wrote down notes because again, I didn't really know what I was supposed to be doing, or if there's like, I don't think there's a right or wrong way, but I like wrote down something because I was like, not that I forget it, but so these are the notes I wrote down literally on this notebook. I will show you right here. Okay, that's the wrong page. Hold on. I wrote down.
Get milk, eggs, and orange juice.
Yeah.
Wow, that was a great Reiki session. See, guys, I fill in. I come in with the comedy, the gold. So
I wrote down right here. This is the chicken scratch of my writing, but I'm all over the place. But I wrote down heart, neck, heat, back of head, and throat. Those are the things I wrote down because that's what I felt in that. Like it was just so much right in my fucking neck. And she was saying that she had spent a lot of time trying to balance that chakra. Like I said, I could have just like died. I was like, are you serious right now? Like, how? And I don't know how. I don't know how that works. I don't know how to connect to something like that. I'm so desperate to learn things like that. But she basically was telling me about kind of who came through. There was a goddess that came through that so synchronistic. If you listen to our relaunch, Brandon and I each picked a card that we thought was reflective of where we are right now. For our listeners, you probably already remember this. I picked the death card. The goddess that came through, goddess of death / transformation. And I was like, okay. And then she was saying that she saw Gizzy's little paw prints on my heart. And anytime anyone mentions Gizmo, like I will immediately like start crying because she is like my energy guide. She is my spiritual guide. I'm my best friend. And so my experience was awesome. She saw 3 animals. The first animal was a Siberian tiger. Side note, as a kid, I did one of those like adopt an animal, and I adopted a Siberian tiger. I've also really always loved tigers. And so if she talked about what that means, she also saw a platypus. It's like so cute.
Ooh,
and
that's
then she
perfect for you.
And then she saw a little brown monkey. And I said, do you know that my dog is called a monkey dog? She said the little monkey was just like playing around. And she said that when she saw the paw prints, it was almost like Gizmo was there being like, you better not fuck her up. Like, I'm here to make sure that we're keeping her remotely sane. So it was just totally incredible. So that was my experience. There were tears, lots of tears. And I felt amazing yesterday. So Brandon, let's talk about yours.
Well, what did you think about what she said about your throat or about feeling that? What do you feel about that?
She said, so I wrote down notes about what it meant for me. She said that that I am not speaking my truth in terms of some aspect of my life.
That's exactly what I was going to say to you. That's exactly. Go ahead, keep going though. That's great.
And to stop lying to myself about something.
That's a good one. I didn't think about that, but yeah, that's great.
And so she said that she felt I needed that goddess that came in. She also brought in like the Virgin Mary, and she said you need that kind of unconditional motherly love for yourself. Like that compassion, that forgiveness of being like, and helping you to move on. And that's something I struggle with. You know, I constantly feel guilty about things that have happened in the past, in regards to my life and my relationships and things like that. So, you know, and again, you hear somebody say that, and she said to me, Ashley, you don't even have to say what it is that you're like not saying. She's like, you just have to realize it and admit it to yourself.
Definitely.
And then she said that when she was clearing my crown chakra on my head, she had this overwhelming image come in of a rising sun, this like brilliant dawn.
That's awesome. Like the sun card.
See, and now I feel like I'm getting emotional. She was like, but there's things happening for you. Big things are happening. You're just at the beginning, and it's going to be this explosive, bright. And when you hear something like that, of course, like, I'm just like, again, going back to the quote, like that belief that there is something higher helping me. These people have been brought into my life to help give me the guidance that I need to hear the time I need to hear it. You know?
Yeah, that's so true.
Okay. So now let's go to you. What was your experience like?
Yeah, I mean, I had a wonderful experience. I really just want to say quickly, though, that also I feel that this podcast is part of that expression that you need to do, because something I've found in my life is when you encounter information, when you start to learn things, and when you start to really embody that knowledge and you look at it with your logic and it makes sense to you, that it's the next important step is to speak that. And that's when it becomes wisdom, is when you share it with other people. And if not, I feel like I think we talked about this before, probably I talk about it all the time, but if you don't express that wisdom, it can linger inside you and, you know, cause issues, mental problems or physical problems. Probably, could it be, you know? Anywho, yeah, Michelle, let's just say she's awesome.
Yep.
And we'll give a shout out to our website again. It was JD. Oh, what did I say?
JAIDEE wellness.
Wellness, that's it.com. Yeah. So go there, book a session. Definitely. I had no idea what to expect. I've never done Reiki. I have a friend who's a Reiki practitioner, and I know there's different types, you know, like the physical and I've heard recently that you could do a remote session. So I was on board, because honestly, even if I love Michelle, right? But even if, you know, say you encounter somebody and they're like a trickster or whatever, and they just say to you, oh yeah, we're going to do this. And then they just hang up and they go watch TV or something. And then you come back and they're like, oh, this is what I got. Like, even if that's the case, it doesn't really matter, because I was working on myself in that time period. I was laying there and I was kind of just letting it happen. So it's really just my belief at the end of the day, you know? So, but everything she said to me was wonderful. So, when I initially talked to her, because Ashley called me right after her experience, everyone didn't let me know what to think, or like what how it was going to go. So I asked her, I'm like, what do you? So, she briefly explained what was going to happen. And, so after I talked to her, I went upstairs, laid down, and the same thing. I felt a little like tickling in my throat a little bit, but I started to laugh, and it wasn't like a burning or anything. It was just like a couple of different sensations I felt really early. And then later, I kind of just felt like sensations throughout my whole body. It's hard to explain. And I put this, there are these tracks on YouTube, frequency tracks, and there's like all these different tones. Like one's the golden or miracle tone. I put it on. It's pretty cool. It just is like a noise, like a song. It's hard to explain. But anyway, so I put that on while I was laying there. And I think toward the end, I kind of might have drifted off asleep a little bit, but most of the times I was in a pretty meditative state. And at one point, my cat came up and like tickled my foot. And then he was like circling me. And then he like climbed on me a couple times. But then he was like, you know, playing my head and then my feet. And so after that, I felt pretty relaxed. And then when I talked to her, she told me that most of my chakras were pretty clean. They're pretty clear. There was just one that was like pretty sticky and muddy. It was like the second chakra.
And did you talk about where that is?
Yeah, that's between your hips. So I kind of felt like there was stuff going on in that area too. And so she said she cleared it all out, and I was really excited. And she told me that basically I have to work with my heart more. I have to listen to my heart and lean on that more. And I talked to her because the night before I had a dream. Well, I was like, the night before I was falling asleep, and I, as I did, I just started to, because I've done a lot of meditative practices and stuff in my life. So, and I've done breathing practices. So I started to take a couple deep breaths before I fell asleep. And I had this feeling to just go like, like, you know, like after a long day in the hot sun, you drink some water and you're like, but I was like, let me just do that for no reason but to relax. So I did it a couple times. And as I would, I guess I'd say, like, started to drift off asleep, I heard this voice, and it was like, we are here. It was like a feeling. And it felt more like people around me, not like in a room, but like in the general area of, say, like Connecticut, or like a network or something like that, where there was like a presence there. It was really weird. So I woke up and I was like, wow, that's cool. And I told her about that, you know, and she was telling me that it's probably has something to do with guides that want to contact me. So she talked about that, and she named a couple, one specifically, and she said one was around my feet and my head the whole time.
Oh my God, that's so fucking cool.
And my cat was at my feet and my head.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it was kind of strange, but very synchronistic. And then another thing she told me was about my animals. She said that she got the gorilla, the sloth, and the woolly mammoth. And she said she'd never seen a woolly mammoth before, so she had to look it up.
And what did that mean?
So what it means is it's somebody who's able to survive with a warm heart in cold environments. So like
wow.
So my ability, and the way I looked at it was like so a quick example, like when I'm starting to meet a new community, like a lot of the fans of Owen Benjamin, you know, like I'll bring my work to them sometimes. And if I don't get a good response, like if I put like in a group chat, I'll put like a video or whatever, it's a couple of people, but like that could really work on somebody, you know. You could be like, oh, why don't these people like me, or all this stuff, or maybe they don't like my work, maybe I shouldn't do it. But I'm just like, whatever. And I'm just like happy about it. And I'm like, hey, what's up? And I'm cool. And I put it in there, you know, and I just don't let it phase me. It's just because there's so many what ifs that I just go crazy. And I used to go crazy. Because that's the thing. It's not like this is automatic. You know, she said that just because you have that capability doesn't mean that you're going to use it all the time, basically, in so many words. And so, but she said it's a good one to think of and kind of call on when you're in that situation, when you're getting a lot of coldness from people, and you just emulate that. Yep. Same thing with a lot of the other animals, but I don't want to share too much of my experience because, you know, I think people should find out for themselves. But we'll talk about it on further episodes again, and I'm sure we'll have Michelle back on and talk about it further, because that would be a great idea. Yes, totally. But did you have any questions over on what I said about my more about my reading?
No, I think we're good. Let's leave it at that. Just I feel like I wanted to say one more thing, but go ahead. Yeah. So a friend of mine, Kristen, who is into this kind of stuff, she does Reiki actually. So I sent her the 3 animals, like I told her about that. She's into animals. And then later she's like, wow, that's great. And then later I saw that she had posted a meme with a turtle, a gorilla, and an elephant that said the oldest, strongest, and smartest all eat plants or whatever. And dude, a turtle's like a sloth, a gorilla is a gorilla, and an elephant is a fucking like a woolly mammoth. I was like, yo, I saw it later and I hit her up. I'm like, remember that thing I told you? I'm like, dude, it's the same thing. So it's crazy how the synchronicities are everywhere. And the sloth, I just want to say, is it's like something I have to remember to slow down, you know, like to focus on the sloth when I'm getting hectic and things are like all over the place. It's like you focus on that inner sloth. It's like, yeah, baby. But it's so funny because when I think of you, I think of somebody that kind of is just like very chill, not frantic. When I was describing our voices in terms of our perspectives on the podcast, I was like, Brandon is like the very stable, very like sounds more serious. I was like, and my voice is all over the place. And a lot of times my attention is normally like all over the place. I've got like a million balls up in the air, right? That's what they say or whatever. And
Yeah.
and so when you said sloth, I was like, that is such a perfect representation of me. Like, you're like, I'm doing things on my own time.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. That is very true about me as well. But where the hecticness is, it comes when there's too many tasks or too many things, especially when I feel like some I can't get done right away. And once I feel like I'm overwhelmed, then I just go into like either escapism or addiction or something else. You know what I mean? It's like, I'll just look into this. I'll just lay here or take a nap. Like Jim Gaffigan used to say that. But I've worked, see, these are aspects I had to work on myself. So that's why I'm able to appear this way on the podcast, because I've podcasted for 7 years now. So, everybody at home that's listening to this, and you too, Ashley, like, it's attainable. Like, you could work on yourself, and I'm not saying I'm perfect or whatever. I'm just saying this is an aspect of myself, just like DJing now. I had an awesome time Saturday, just a really great wedding. Shout out to Leanna and Brandon, which is hilarious because the groom's name is Brandon. So I kept giving shout outs to Brandon on the mic. And everyone was like, Brandon. I was like, But so anyway, yeah, it was so but it's the same thing. You got to work on these skills. So yeah. Anyway, let's get into this card.
Yes. Okay. So we've now talked about our Reiki. We'll move on. So we're going to look at the 9 of Wands. Look at this. We're almost through with our numerology series here with the 4 different suits. So I'm going to give a brief description, then we're going to go into like initial thoughts, feelings, etc. as we normally do. So the card, you got a blue background, but this card is different because it also looks like it goes a little like it looks like there's a little bit of a gradient of like the blue at the top that goes into a little bit of a lighter blue. In the background, there's these mountains. You see the 9 wands standing up. 8 of them are firmly planted. They're all various heights. And then in the front of the card, you see a figure holding 1 wand. It is on the ground. He's wearing these knee-high boots, these kind of yellow tights, a red tunic, a white shirt, and it looks like he has like a bandage on his head. Okay. Again, if you want to see it, you definitely look at our Facebook, The TarotBull Podcast, or look on our Instagram at TarotBull2, TarotBull, the number 2. Brandon, thoughts? What are you thinking here?
Watch the video on YouTube. Right now it's up on YouTube Brandon Bonanza channel. And soon we'll have a TarotBull channel, hopefully. So just look for TarotBull and it should just be there. It'll magically manifest it by the time you hear this episode.
Yes.
All right. So when I see this card, I think about Sunday, which was a couple days ago for me, which, well, by the time you hear this, it'll be weeks in advance. But anyway, I did a wedding and I had so much fun. I was like the MC, I worked with another guy who's a DJ, but we both basically played the music and, have a good time. But I had such a fun time and everybody was like dancing around. It was really crazy. But that was Saturday night. But then Sunday, I was like so beat up and I felt like I needed to recoil and kind of like chill out and recharge and get some of that energy back that I was, that I expended out there. And the way that I do it is kind of just by doing that, introverting. So I feel like this is what it was like. It wasn't like bad. So this guy, he like fought a battle, but he's not sad about it. He's just contemplating. He's thinking back kind of, thinking about maybe the future. So that's what I feel like. And those wands behind him, it's what he's already established in magic. He's already made it. And there's 8 of them. So that's infinity. It's like I put these here, it lasts forever. And then he still has his wand to create more with. So, and like how we talk about 9s. Well, I guess we could talk about 9s later.
So I love what you just said about the infinity because I didn't even think about that. But if I'm looking at this card, my thoughts are he looks like a little beat up, like he got into something. But I didn't even see a battle. You can see in the card the space that looks like that wand was supposed to be planted in. And to me, looking at initial thought it was like he put in so much energy, physical energy to remove it from that spot, kind of like removing these obstacles, getting rid of these obstacles or this blockage to get into the background of the picture, which is these mountains. But bring back to what you said about the infinity is that's what life is. There's always going to be obstacles and and roadblocks and these things. And it's your job to be able to say, like, how do I get through this? How do I overcome this? Because he, as much as he looks injured, he looks like, look, I'm ready to go. Like, let's do another one. Like, I got this.
Yeah. I also want to say, well, go ahead, because I'll say this, or unless you want to talk about the different aspects of the cards, because these wands really look like snakes to me. I don't know if it's because I have it like inverted, but the top of them look like the heads of snakes. At first, listen, I'm going to admit, at first I'm kind of like, are they making these things look like penises? Because I get it where they like to do that everywhere with the phallic symbols, but upon further inspection, it looks like a snake kind of. And it reminds me in the Bible when Moses had his staff and he would throw it on the ground, it would turn into a snake. And thinking about that, what that could mean on another level really is just sometimes there's that magic that it's only the knowledge that you can use and possess in your life and use, like I said before, maybe to share your wisdom, but other people can't really use it yet. They're just not ready. So for them, it could be dangerous if they grab it. And then also the snake is very heavily connected to the ground, into earth, into like pentacles and stuff like that. That's really what it represents. So I also feel like it's that grounding of that energy. It's like, remember, sometimes you have to let it go and let it ground out.
But if you think also about Moses, right, when he parted the sea, at least the interpretation I always got was that he like took his staff up, right? He raised his rod, and then when he put it in the ground, then the water just kind of moved. Like, get out of the way, moving those obstacles.
Yeah. This is my path. It doesn't matter what's in my way. Even if there's an ocean in the way of my path, even if that story never happened, like if you're listening to this as somebody is an atheist and doesn't believe in us doesn't believe that there's a higher power. Thank you for still listening, even though you don't agree with us. I appreciate that, because I listen to people I don't agree with a lot and I get stuff out of that. And, you could just look at this as an allegory to, hey, it doesn't matter what's in your way. If you're on the right path and you just take it as when they say what God tells you, that's just the path you should live. Even if there's an ocean in your way, it's going to move. So, yeah.
And so, all right, now I'm going to talk about my thoughts here of these wands. The rest of the wands in the background, those 8, if you notice, they actually have leaves coming off of not just the top. It's like going down the entirety of it. But his only has the leaves up at the top. And to me, it's like one of those, see, he didn't kill anything. It's still there. It's still growing. Maybe he had to get rid of, kind of cut the fat to be able to pull it out, right?
Like you would a plant. Like sometimes you have to prune a plant.
Yes. And that just helps it to grow even bigger.
Yeah. And all these ideas, if you bring it back, it's the same thing, like the idea of the phoenix going through the fire. It has to burn, everything has to burn off, or like the caterpillar has to go inside the cocoon and everything has to come off. That's not going to be the butterfly. It's the same thing. He has to prune this, whatever this rod represents to him, he has to prune it in a way to make it work for him and keep it growing. And the other thing that came to me when I said that thing.
Oh, you changed it so you don't have the card up anymore. So now I have to go back and look at it.
Oh, yeah. It's back to us now.
Yes.
What I was going to say is it's throwing down that wand like that and turning into a snake is really, that kind of really resonated. I want to kind of repeat that, where sometimes you have to do that power. You just can't create all day. Sometimes you have to let it go back to the earth and chill out. Then that's what that dude was doing. He's chilling the F out. He's behind his little barrier right there. He's recouping.
And so I want to talk about kind of where he's standing and the background, because so I'm going all in here with what I was saying before about these obstacles and stuff. Notice the ground he's staying on is very flat, right? It is it's a very smooth kind of roadway. And it looks like he's trying to get behind this roadway to go into the background. But what do we see in the background? All of those mountains, which also brings me back to there is constant struggle, right? There is going to be this up and down in life.
Yeah.
And he's not scared. He's not like, you know what, I'm just going to hang out here on this road for the rest of my life. He's like, no, look, I'm ready to go. I'm going to take this staff and I'm going to go and I'm going to climb those mountains.
And he could have even came from those mountains in that wilderness, and he had to loosen that rod to get where he is on that smooth road for now. And he's taking a break till he can get back out there, you know, like, because sometimes we always talk about there's two paths, and a lot of people like to say take the path less traveled. Well, sometimes you have to travel the path of everyone else, even if only to cross over it, but you're going to have to interact with quote unquote, you know, normies out there that are don't believe in any of this nonsense. So so yeah, it's just another reminder to hold your head up and just be that beacon of light no matter what, because we're not better than anybody. We're just farther on a different path, and just, you know, whatever. It's like,
oh my God, Brandon. And I love that you said the exact opposite of what I said in terms of where he's coming from. Because I do love the idea of him coming from the mountains. And I think that when you overcome an obstacle, there is this type of like, I'm going to need a second. Like, let me just gather, like, you know, get my bearings, and then I'm ready to go back at it, you know? But you need to have that time of being calm and peaceful and just like kind of being like proud of yourself, you know? Like, he's like, shit, like, look, I got this thing out. And I love that. Now I want to talk about his he has like this bandage on his head.
First, though, really quick, I just want to say, I love how you said the other aspect of the opposite, because that's normally something I would say. So then it made me think of the opposite. So we just got both sides of that. It was great. But anyway, go ahead.
Yes. And I wanted to now let's talk about this head covering he has. It's like this, it's kind of like a bandage that you would give him, like I have like a wound or something like that, but it's white. There's no like blood coming through. It's not dirty. And you'd think like if he was like sweating and toiling, like and had this on there, like it might look like kind of gross. And I love that it's so crisp and white, because it gives me this idea of like this purity of the mind. What? Oh my gosh, what?
Well, I've been wearing a bandana lately because like I with this hair, everybody, this long, beautiful hair. It's the first time I've really grown my hair out. So I used to kind of wear hats and hold it back and stuff, but I noticed like it weakens the hair up here. So I've just been wearing basically a bandana around here, just like looped without even over. And the one I've been wearing more recently is I have a green one and I have a white one. And I was looking at that and I'm like, oh my God, that's like me wearing that white thing. That's crazy. Cause like you said, I don't wear it as a bandage. I wear it more for clarity and to keep the hair out of my eyes so I could see better.
I would love to like get my hands in your hair. I'd like make like little braids.
I should have somebody braid it. That would be pretty wicked cool. Hey, if you live in the Connecticut area and you want to braid some of my hair, hit me up. Yeah.
Well, you know,
I'll trade you. I'll give you a reading while you braid my hair. That's a pretty good trade. Trust me, I've had some powerful readings. I was on the phone last night pretty late with a good friend who I feel could do this work, and she's in the process of healing. So not that I'm helping her. I'm just having conversations with her, man, you know, and it's going well. And the cards are really speaking to her, like amazingly. Like something I pulled 3 and something told me to pull 3 more. And one of the cards, the first 3 I pulled, the first card was a knight. And then the last 3 I pulled, the last card was a knight.
Oh, like full circle.
Yeah. The first one was a wand and the next one was the cup. So it was like, I don't know. It was cool. But anyway, so yeah, I keep forgetting the recording.
Yeah. And so I just, but I just love
You're welcome, everybody listening. That's the best content ever when people forget they're recording. Come on.
And so I'm going back to, I love that the bandage is so clean, giving that clarity, but also it's like when you overcome something or you go through something, you go through some kind of obstacle, you do have insight into whatever it is you were just going through, and you're able to kind of assess things more clearly. You know, I think a lot of times people can jump into something and they really have no idea of what it really entails. Case in point, like an example would be like having a kid. And you know, when people are like, I just wanted somebody to love me. And they're like, it's like, nah, bruh. Like there's a lot more involved than that, you know, than like, it's not, this kid doesn't come out being like, I fucking love you. Like, it's going to be like dependent on you for everything. And I don't even know if initially that is like love it feels, as opposed to like, this is giving me everything I require. you know?
Mm.
But so I just love that bandage. And I also, now looking at the rest of his outfit, I love like the knee-high boots, because it almost gives that, to me, that idea of like he was trudging through this like mud. Like he needed to have his legs like covered. He's not wearing like these little booties or anything like that. It's like, no, he was going through like the thick of it and like trying to protect himself so he could keep moving.
Yeah, for sure. And they're like clean, you know, they're not like ripped up or beat up. His whole outfit's pretty like, you know, clean and not tattered at all. I like what you said also about where you were kind of joking around about people having kids they need someone else to love them. But I see that does happen. And I don't want to judge people, because it is a natural instinct to have a child. And it's probably one of the most beautiful things you can create in this universe, I feel, because we have to keep this race going somehow. And, could it be that there's all these lies of overpopulation? It's like, come on, I've been into a lot of parts of the world. There's plenty of room. Stop it. But, that's a different discussion. But what I want to say is I feel like it's just society and the way we're raised and the pressures that are put on us. It's like, if you really don't take the time, you could get caught up in a lot of this, and you kind of just go with the flow. Like we were saying before, you go with the flow, which is like God's plan or whatever, or the path. You can also go with the flow the other way, and you just go with the flow of the world, and it feels easier. But that's when you start to manifest physical. Could it be that's when physical sicknesses and illnesses manifest, and certain things? Like, for example, I was much more like, me, I was overweight. My skin was crazier. I was like, all over the place. I had severe intimacy issues, we'll say, so like, as I began to slow down. Yeah,
you were, Brandon. You were all over the place.
as I began to slow down. As I began to slow down, I thought I was supposed to be the funny one. This isn't fair. I want to be the funny one. I want to be funny.
You're like, I thought I was the funny one, yet the only person laughing is me at myself with things I say.
No, I think that was hilarious. I was just trying to keep on point, because if not, I'll lose it.
Yes, okay. You said as you started to slow down. I'm sorry. I'm going to stop.
Oh, no, don't be sorry, please. This is entertainment. This is a podcast. See, now we're podcasting, everybody. We are. Well, let me tell you, this is like one of the hidden gems, if you will, of the internet. Once people discover it, they're going to be like, this isn't really about tarot, everybody. Yeah, get it. Yeah, we get it. Tarot's not really about tarot. So quit,
Right.
Anyway, so bring me back again. What was I talking about? Oh yeah.
As you were starting to slow down,
I started to notice these behaviors in myself, and it wasn't like somebody else was telling me and I felt like I had to change it. I was just like, oh, I don't feel like doing that anymore. And then I changed it, and now I feel much better about it. I didn't have to beat myself up.
Yep.
Looking back, I could be like, disgusted by the things I did, but it's like, no, I had to do that in order to know that's not what I like to do, because nobody really ever told me directly or showed me the path exactly. Basically everything I ever got growing up, and I'm not like bitching, I'm just saying basically everything we get growing up, most people, is listen to what we say and we will tell you. And then it comes to a point where they stop telling you what to do, and you're like, what next? Now what? And they're like, just go do. And they're like, now what? All
right. So let me pull back up the card here.
I'll pull it back up too.
Anything else you want to talk about with the card?
No,
I do have one more thing. Wait, I have one more thing I want to say. So, in all of the cards that most of the cards that we've looked at in this suit, you see this kind of blue background, and we've talked a lot about struggles and things like that, but it's like, to me, this looks like the struggle's almost over, right? There's this blue sky, like after the storm comes the rainbow type of thing. You know what I mean? But you can't have the rainbow if you didn't have the storm. Okay, so let's say you pull this card, it comes up in a general reading. I feel like we kind of actually already talked about that with our initial thoughts of it and how we would apply it to a reading. But let's just give like a quick, if this came up in a general reading, what would you say? Yeah,
sure. First, I want to give a quick shout out to this picture I found. It's from buildingbeautifulsouls.com. It shows a picture of the 9 of Wands with also a couple of like the zodiac signs, the element, and some nice words about it. It's really cool. So if you guys want to check that out, go to their site. It looks, I actually often use these pictures when I'm doing readings for people, especially on Zoom. I'll send it to them because it gives them a couple things to focus on while I talk, but it's not too much information, Anywho, so I would say if this came up in a general reading, I'll just say for myself, if this came up, I would say this is exactly me on Sunday. I went through that struggle that we talked about in the mountains, which wasn't really just struggle. It was just, it's like going hiking or mountaineering. It's like a choice. Like, I need to get through these mountains, and it wasn't even something bad. It was something I was really looking forward to, and I had a great time. But yeah, it was still very challenging because people right now, it's different. It's not the same as it was DJing in 2019 and 2018 that is in 2021. But yep. I am able to adapt to the situation. I connected with these people. We were just on Zoom, but I really listened to what they had to say. And I know what people want right now. They just want to have a good time and release all that negative energy by dancing, because that's what a lot of people, that's how a lot of people do it in this society. There's nothing wrong with that. So that's what we did. And afterwards, though, especially if you go too hard, and I don't really drink that much, especially when I DJ, I don't drink, but this could be those other people if they did drink. That's a choice that you have to make sometimes. When you drink a little too much and you imbibe, you might feel a little beat up the next day. So I'll tell you that yeah, everything goes in cycles, I would say, to myself and to somebody else in this reading. And this is that time when you kind of just have to sit back and look at everything you've established, and not to be like cocky, but just to say, yeah, I'm on the right path. I'm doing it. And look at what I've done so far and look at where I'm going. This is going to be great. And it's time, like a reprieve.
And so if this came up for me in a general reading, I would say very similar to what you said. And we haven't really talked a lot about the numerology of nines, but in tarot, right, you have the 1 or the ace, and it goes through the 10, and the 10 would be a complete cycle. It would be the kind of the end of the conclusion of that cycle. And 9 is like, it's like you're almost there. And so I love, one of my favorite cards is actually the 9 of cups, because I also really associate with cups. But what I love about this one is, I would say if this came up, I'd say, like, you've been through some shit. It's almost done, though. Like, it might seem like there's no light at the end of the tunnel, but there is, and it's like, yeah, and you've weathered it, and you're eventually going to have that clarity, in your head about the situation, and you're going to feel stronger because of it. And obviously that's like very generalized. Now let's talk about if this came up in a love reading. What would you say? You
go.
Okay, so if you're single, and as our listeners know, like, I like to divide it up, single versus in a relationship. If you're single, I'm going to say, like, maybe you've really closed yourself off. And look, in the past year, that's been really easy to do, right? Because the only way to really date, quote unquote date, is like virtually. And the idea of having a virtual first date to me literally sounds like I'd rather pull out all my teeth. But maybe you've been really closed off to meeting people, or it's not even closed off in terms of like emotionally and mentally, like, but physically. And maybe it's time to put yourself out there and get back into the dating world. And maybe you have to kind of, you've been working through some of the shit in the last relationship, that relationship baggage, and to the point where it's like, what, I'm not going to carry this with me anymore. Leave it at home and forget about it, because I'm over it. I've learned, I've grown. I'm still here. And that's something I feel a lot of people feel as soon as they get out of a relationship. I'm part of a lot of different groups on Facebook, and some of them are very female centric. And, a lot of times I'll see people like, I just got out of a relationship, like, tell me it gets better. And it's like, that initial part of when you first break off that relationship fucking sucks. You miss the person, you feel like you're never going to get through it. And everyone always says, like, time heals all wounds, and that, like, fucking sucks too. But look, he still survived, right? Now, if you're in a relationship, maybe you have built up some walls and you need to kind of break through them. Or maybe there's a lot of conflict and you guys have been working through some of your issues. And, there's several ways to work through issues, but it comes to the point at the end of the day, it's like, is this going to break the relationship, or can we get through this together? And because if you've ever been in a relationship, there's not just one issue and then you get over it and you're like, oh, the rest of the relationship's perfect. Like, no, you're going to constantly have issues as you grow and develop and you move through your life. And so if you're in a relationship, kind of assessing the situation like he's doing in the card and saying like, where are we? You know, can we work through this as a team, or am I going to have to go this solo? And knowing that sometimes there are lulls in a relationship. There are these times where things are really, really difficult. Again, I'm not a parent, so I can't speak to like that, but maybe if you've just had a child or you've brought something into like that, and you're like, I know it's really hard for parents from experiences that I've observed with my family when you first bring a child into your home, because there is a disconnect and it's no longer about the two of you, right? It's about this other living thing that needs to be taken care of. So that's what I'd say if you're in a relationship. Going back to also being single, because I feel like that also seemed a little negative and like a little downery. But maybe if you're like dating or whatever, it is like this new process of kind of diving into an actual relationship. You have been dating around, and now you're like, and I'm not saying like the obstacles that come with a relationship, because it's not always going to be like super hard to be in a relationship with somebody, but maybe you're willing to kind of, you know, take that risk, you know, make that jump kind of thing. Okay, I'm done. Now, what are your thoughts?
Well, I really like what you had to say there. I'm glad I let you go
Thank
first. You. Really good. You covered a lot of points there.
Mm-hmm.
But I could say that in my own life, you know, this is kind of like because I am single, so I will say that this could represent me, you know, because like you were saying, if you want to get out there right now, most people believe that you have to get on the internet and meet people, but you could still go meet people the old fashioned way. You just might get beat up a little bit like this guy, but that might yield better fruit. I'm not saying like you should stalk people and harass them and like, you know, make them feel uncomfortable, but if you feel like you're around out in public somewhere and there's a possible connection, go for it. That's what this card kind of is saying to me.
I mean, look, that's kind of how we connected. I basically harassed you into talking to me.
No, you just asked me to play a couple songs, but yeah, some people harass me.
You're like, no, you asked me to do my job.
Yeah. Plus, they were good songs that I could play, so that always helps. Because, like, I get it. I don't want to be good, but when I say good, I just mean it's like as a DJ, you know, you got to play the songs that everybody knows, especially when everybody's dancing. So these aren't even specifically songs I always like. It's just I know the ones that work most times. But when somebody's asking for like "Baby Got Back" by Sir Mix-a-Lot, I'm like, oh yeah, of course, because you know everybody loves that song.
Hold on, I did not ask for "Baby Got Back."
I know. Well, of course, you asked it for what's that? It's been so long since I DJ'd. I know the BPM. It's 107 BPM. It's the Caribbean song. I keep wanting to say "Tempted to Touch" because that keeps popping in my head, but that's not the one. It's the other one. Anyway, Mark, right? Isn't it Mark something?
It's Harry Belafonte.
Oh, Shake Sonora. But there's another one though. There's the other one that you like. I played.
No, it wasn't that one. It was Deo.
Deo.
The Banana Boat song.
Oh, the Banana Boat song. All right.
That's the song everyone wants to hear when they go to a fucking club.
That's right. Oh, it was a bar, so it's different. You could get away with it. In the club, you got to play that do, Deo, do. All right. Anyway, so let's, I think that would cover it about for the love. So let's get into, I'll just go into my thoughts on career for this. This is, and I'm going to bring the card back up as I do it. If this came up in a career reading, I would just say to people that, as I always say, when you're working on your own thing, this is the point where you've already established yourself and you went through that fight. And now you just kind of take a breath and kind of relax for a second, because it's only going to get crazier because the 10's coming next.
Yeah.
So right now, use that 9 energy, the ego of the self. The 9 is supposed to be kind of selfish. And it's a weird number because anytime you add something to it, like 8 plus 9 is 17. So it comes back to itself because 1 plus 7 is 8. So, and then anytime you multiply it by itself, it just comes back to itself. So 9 times anything, when you add it to itself, it comes back. So like 9 times 2 is 18 and 1 plus 8 is 9. So that's why it's considered that number, the ego of the self. So that there's nothing wrong with that. I just feel in this society, we're stuck in that ego state of mind a lot. But if you are able to heal yourself and use your ego correctly, there's nothing wrong with it, and it's good. And sometimes you have to give it a break and a rest because it can be beat up. So that's what I would say, especially when it comes to your job. Like if you've established yourself, like you got some clients going and you're killing it right now, you know, awesome. Take that break, plan the next move, next steps. I don't have to tell you that though. You already know that.
So for me, looking at this in terms
I'm just bragging for you.
Yeah. In terms of career focus reading, also anyone that watches our videos, it's really difficult for me to sit still. I'm like always moving around.
I stand up a lot. I have a stand-up desk here, so sometimes I'll stand and sit. You can't really tell. I'm like a Catholic mass over here.
Yeah.
Hey.
And to that, I'm going to say, get on your knees and tell me you love me.
Okay, Father. That's creepy. Anyway. Yeah. Call no man Father. Okay, Father.
What is this podcast turning into? So, if this came up in a career focus reading, I would say, looking at it like you probably overworked. And maybe you've been investing too much time into whatever project or whatever company it is that you're working for or on. And something I've kind of taken recently, you know, look, I've been unemployed now for a minute, but like looking at it, it's like, I look at how much time I spent on things, like, and look, if I'm really into it and I'm devoted and dedicated to it, I'll spend time on it, but there has to be a time where it's like that lull, right? Even if you're an athlete, at the end of your season, you take some time off. And you can't overwork yourself forever because you're going to burn out. You're going to have some kind of breakdown and you're going to just be a miserable human being because you're always to the point where you feel like you have to dedicate more and it's never good enough. So in terms of work, I'd say like, okay, maybe you had a really hard project. Take a minute, take a second to like regroup, refocus. That will bring you even more fresh and motivated into whatever you're doing next. If I always like to talk about what I see in terms of what kind of jobs this applies to, I would definitely say an athlete. But do you know what else I'm really feeling from this? Like a salesperson or customer service.
Yeah, customer service. Or yeah, I hear that because you get beat up out there. And sales too, yeah, for sure.
And it's just like, wow, you know, like, oh my God, and every day you're just going into life being like, that's what I have to deal with today, you know, and that's what I'm getting from this. All right, let's talk real quick about if this card was reversed.
Okay.
What do you think?
I would say if this card came reversed, that it is maybe you are getting into a lot of arguments and fights with people and disagreements. And those are the battles that are out there. So it's like an external battle instead of the internal battle. And maybe, you know, you're at a place right now where you're lost and you don't know what's going on. And I would just say that you can't really change other people's minds. I found out, you know, you can't really give advice. I'm starting to find out these things, like the easiest thing to do is kind of just hold space for somebody, kind of be a witness, let them speak, and then just maybe share some of your experience that you've had in that area, or, you know, just keep your mouth shut. I don't know, like, yes. But, or just feel whatever you feel intuitively come through. That's really what you should speak about, or maybe not speak at all, but because a lot of times when you like, for example, I'll see myself in somebody else. If I see somebody displaying behavior, I'm like, oh, I used to do that, and this is how I fixed it. So I'd be like, hey, I used to do that. This is how I fixed it. And they're like, shut the fuck up. I'm like, okay, have a nice day. And they start throwing rocks at me and they, you know, criticize me and burn my house down. So that's what I mean. This is like why you got to be careful, because the truth is really sometimes the most offensive thing to people, because a lot of times at some level, people need to be doing and want to be doing and displaying the behavior they are, just like I was and you were and all this stuff. It's like we're children. We still are on some level. That's really how I like to look at this. It's just the journey of a child because when you were a kid, you thought that, you know, GI Joes or Barbie dolls are the most important thing, or Cabbage Patch Kids or whatever it was, you know. And now you're like, oh, I wish I kept my baseball cards more, but you know. And even then, like when I was obsessed with baseball cards, once I discovered women, I was like, whoa, you know, I didn't care about baseball cards anymore. So it's the same kind of thing. You're just progressing.
I had a similar experience with baseball cards. I'm kidding. Okay, for me, looking at this being reversed, I would say that this person is almost stuck in a situation, because I think so many people are so scared of this idea of struggle or hardships or obstacles. And so then it's like, I don't want to have that, so I'm just going to stay where I am. But what they don't realize is there's struggles and obstacles that come with staying put, you know, and you're not really, then going back to our quote from earlier, like, you're not really growing, you're not really moving forward in your life. And by staying there, you're missing out on literally a world of possibilities. And so I kind of dive into, like, why are you so scared? What's holding you back? Maybe they can't even recognize that it's a fear, but there's something holding them back. Either I feel like I won't be able to get through it, or I don't think I have the right resources, or whatever. And look, there's something okay to saying, I don't want to do this at this stage of my life. I will do this. I'm just not at a place right now where I feel like I can. Because some people, that also takes a lot of awareness, because I feel like what I was just initially saying came off as like really negative, but you know, I get that. There is something to say, like, I really want to do a perfect example. My friend, in Connecticut, like my best friend, he sent me a text on Sunday, and he called me, or I called him, and he really wants to start his own business. And he wants to do like a gym, like a rock climbing gym. But they called me on Sunday, and his wife is now pregnant. Well, it might not be the best time right now to start your own business, because you got this new living creature coming into your life that you're going to need to take care of, and financially, and also time-wise, you might not be able to dedicate it to a business, right? That's not saying he's never going to do it, but it's just saying, like, hey, right now I can't. I don't have the bandwidth to do it. But at least having that recognition of, like, but I still am going to do it, right? Okay, so now for the next part of our podcast, we look at the same card, but it's in a different deck. Brandon gives the description. We'll just kind of give an initial thoughts of this card.
All right. Well, I just want to say I really like what you said, and that bandwidth analogy is spot on, because that's really what attention is all about. Sometimes, you know, we're always taught that multitasking is the way to do it, but you really divide your attention when you do that. I'm not saying you shouldn't do that, or maybe not be able to, but that's where that hecticness can also come in to your life. So it's just something to be aware of. But yeah, that's great. And yeah, like having a kid is beautiful, because now you start a business a couple years later and you have somebody to work for you. And you have this cute little kid who's like 3 or 4 that can help you run around the office, and people are like, oh my God, he's so cute. And then they'll want to do business with you, you know, and they want to take their kids there. Oh yeah. And you could start. I went to a Airbnb once, and the lady, it was like in Tampa, and she had a little house near the little river there. It was nice. And then their own house, she took me and was showing me. And, for her, she had an 8-year-old daughter, I think it was, and like one whole side of the room was just a rock wall. It was sick. I'm like, this is her room? I'm like,
oh, I like that a lot.
All right, so here we go, everybody. This is the 9 of Wands in the Aleister Crowley Thoth deck. And we've talked about all different interpretations of these cards, and basically they're just symbols. It's a creation, I feel, from the subconscious. So even if it was made with evil intent, it could be used in any way, despite how its intent, you know, like I said, God works in mysterious ways. Anyway, really crazy looking card here. Looks very powerful. You have one center, I would say, wand, but it looks more like an arrow with a moon at the bottom. And the other wands are the same. They look like arrows with moons for where the fletching would be, which is like the feather on an arrow, and then a moon for the arrow tip. And the difference with the main wand in the middle is the moon is facing the other way. So it wouldn't really be an arrow tip, or it'd be like a double prong, like a fork.
Mm-hmm.
And the top of it, which is the direct top of the card, is a beautiful looking sun. It has yellow, and then on the inside of that, it's like a paler yellow, and then a white dot in the middle of that.
Mm-hmm.
And then behind in the background, there looks like what is some kind of maybe star, with red like beams of energy. And the only other thing I could say is there's like the masculine symbol down at the bottom of the main wand that looks like an arrow, and it kind of reminds me of like Mars, like that male Martian energy. Anyway, what are you thinking?
So I really like this. What you did not bring up is that at the bottom of the card, it says strength. So each of the cards has like a word that they have written on the card, I guess an association. I also surprisingly really like this card. It feels very powerful to me, and it feels very victorious. Like they are prepped and ready to go. And there's for me this knowledge of, even when the sun is gone, you know, to quote Annie, the sun will come out tomorrow. And if there is no sun, you still have the moon. And Brandon and I have talked about, we're both Cancers. I heavily relate to the moon. Like I feel such a connection to the moon. And I love that the moon are crescents on these wands. So you have either a waxing crescent, which starts at the beginning of the lunar cycle, where it's going from no moon or a new moon where you don't see anything. And it starts growing like sliver by sliver, right? And so you have these waxing crescent moons. And then you have the waning crescent moon, which is where it's gone through almost its full cycle. You've seen the full moon, and then slowly it starts kind of little by little, you see less and less and less of it until it gets back to the new moon. And knowing that even if it is a waning crescent moon, and it's going to be that new moon where you're not going to have the moon in the sky to light up the night, give it a week, give it 2 weeks, and it will come back, and you will see it all and full. So it's kind of very motivational and inspirational, me looking at this, of like, there is going to be that light for you. Even if you don't see it, it's still there, you know, kind of, again, going back to the quote from earlier, even though, you know, things are happening for you, you just don't see them. You just have to have faith.
Yeah, I really like that. That's so true. And the other thing I want to say about this card and about nines in general is it's really the card. It's like a perfection. You know, we've talked about this before, where it's like now, well, you might not get the reference yet, but it's kind of like the ending of a movie, but not the quite end. It's the climax. It's like when the good guy defeats the bad guy. That's why you have the sun, the gloriousness. And then the 10 is like the final closing, the end scene of a movie or a book or whatever, of a play. So
right, the conclusion, right? Conclusion. The I overtook this bad guy, and then the conclusion is like, so I was able to get into the castle or some bullshit like that, right? And save the princess, and like Mario, you know?
Mario. Exactly.
And so I love the word strength, because for me, that the way I'm interpreting it is the strength is really the strength in the faith. Like you have to be strong in your faith and and like knowing that you will be able to overcome these things. Yeah. Not like, to me, it's not like an actual like physical strength. Like I'm fucking jacked. Like, no, I mean like I it's like that. Like I believe I can, so I will.
Yeah. Faith is more, in my eyes, what I've come to see. It's more like, hey, I'm doing my end over here. So now it's up to the universe. Comma God, comma, you know, AKA Allah, however you want to embody it, the all. Now it's up to the all to live up to their part of the bargain. And guess what? It's going to do it every fucking time. You know, that's what natural law is about. And some people will misunderstand it, and I get it totally. They think natural law is about the law of the jungle, and it's purposely, I feel like, obfuscated so people think that. But natural law is really just karma, kind of like what goes around comes around. You're like, if you do something, every action has an opposite and equal reaction. So that's really what it's about. So yeah, just get out there. And the last thing I wanted to say to bring this home really was because you said about the moon. I've heard something recently, and I'm starting to kind of feel it, where it's like we came from the moon and we're headed toward the sun. Like the moon and the sun are portals, and we came out of one and we're headed toward the other. So, but you could go the other way. You could head toward the other way, and I'm not saying it's bad, but I feel like me and you were headed toward the sun. So
yes, I agree.
Let's do it.
And I think that's a great place to kind of end for today, because we've probably talked for a while. Yeah, it's been a while.
It's been a while.
Next week, we will finish up with the 10 of Wands in terms of just looking at the numbered portions of the card. So we'll look at the 10 of Wands, kind of figure that out, kind of dive into it. If you want to hear more of us, we are also releasing episodes now on Thursday. So our Thursday episodes are honestly turning into like some of my favorite conversations that I've had recently. We have guests come on, and these guests are people that are in the spiritual realm that are interested in being able to kind of talk about who they are and what they do. And we have them coming out every Thursday. We've already have quite a few by this point that you can listen to. I'm really excited because I believe the week that this episode comes out, we will have had our first male guest. And I was talking to someone about this yesterday, and I was like, you don't normally think about men being in this space. A lot of times you associate it more with women. At least, the groups I'm a part of, that seems to be the case.
I feel so oppressed.
But I just love
Is this what it feels like to be a woman?
I just love that we're getting all these different perspectives. So now you can listen to Brandon and I 2 times a week. Our regular tarot podcast is going to be on Tuesday, and then our guest episodes are going to be on Thursday. And you can check us out on Instagram or on Facebook. Reach out to us if you'd like to book a reading. Super excited about that.
Yeah, book a dual reading. You can book us both, everybody. And also my book is out there. You can go get it, read it. Go to shadowworked.com, and for a small donation, whatever you can do, I put a suggested one, but whatever you can do, or more if you can, hey, hook it up. I'm not here to be on this realm to be rich. I get it. But if you want to, show me your thanks, go ahead, man. Shadowwork.com. Read my book. Let me know what you think. And guys, thank you so much again for listening. We really love doing this. This is like the favorite parts of our week. So thank you for joining us. And again, if you have any feedback, please let us know. We love it. If you leave a rating on iTunes or on Stitcher or on, what's the other one? Spotify, any of them, YouTube, if you leave a comment, we will read it on the air. So do that. All right, everybody. I think that's it. So until next week, stay terrible. That was terrible. You did that on purpose.